Welcome to Icarus Conlang, a new channel where I'll be making various conlanging videos. It's been a hobby of mine for a while, and I've always thought YouTube should have more videos about conlanging, and so here I am making some videos on conlanging. This series is one where I'll be making a conlang, and you can sort of watch me do the process sort of on paper. I plan on these videos being fairly short and fairly frequent, but we'll see what happens. Other videos I'm planning on making are sort of like reference videos. I've got a series on the IPA planned out, different sort of neat featural things, just, stuff that I come across that I think would be interesting, that I think people might enjoy a short little video about, just to spark their ideas in conlanging. So with that, let's begin. The conlang that I'm working on, or going to be starting here, what I like to do is I like to plan out sort of some rough things that I want for the language. And that usually starts with phonology. How do I want this language to sound? And I just give myself some keywords, key ideas that I can continue to refer back to, and I update as often as I want. If the language takes me in a direction that I didn't expect, but I like it, cool, let's go for it. If I start getting into a rut where I'm like, I just don't know what I'm doing with this language, I can look back and say, oh, well, that's what I wanted to do with the language. How can I get there? And for this one, I think I want what I call a soft phonology. I'm sure if I say the words French or Elvish versus German or Orcish, you get the idea of what soft versus a harsh language might be. It's fairly subjective, but it's my language and I can make it how I want it. So I'm thinking a soft phonology, something with quite a few fricative sounds, some liquids. I do want to try Retroflex stops. I haven't used those in a conlang yet, and I'd kind of like to see if they can fit into this, although I'm not married to that idea. Maybe not. I do want pharyngeals. That is a sound that I haven't used in a language much at all, but I would like to use them, and maybe I can get some really neat vowel coloring out of that. Maybe some very interesting sound changes can come from those. We'll see what happens. But I think that's enough notes for phonology just for now. I don't really know what I want the vowels to be doing. I had thought about maybe doing ATR harmony, but I'm not sure. I might not do that. We'll see what happens I'll start doing after this video. We'll start the process of doing phonology, and we'll see what we like with the vowels. The other thing I like to do is kind of roughly outline my nouns, verbs, and my adjectives. And usually the only note I make for adjectives is, do I want them to be verby or nouny? And for this language, I'm going to go with verbal, I think. And you'll see why in a second here. What I kind of want to do with this conlang is I've had this idea for a little bit of making it very noun heavy, very dependent on the nouns for the sense of things, almost to the point of having my verbs are very simple with, no overt tense marking. I'm thinking of having no personal agreement, though that might just have to change. But we'll see what happens. I had thought about, what I'm thinking is you'll have a verb, and the verb might be the first word in a sentence, might be the last word in a sentence. I think it's going to be one of those two positions. But that's just sort of, a very basic, here's what's happening. And the nouns really give you a sense of how it's being done, you know. Really, I want to mark almost all the information on the nouns, which means I'm going to end up with some fairly complex nouns. I've even considered marking my tense aspect mood on the subject or the object. I'm not sure about that yet, but I think it would be neat to play around with that and see what happens. Obviously, I'm going to have a case system. A fairly robust case system. We might be getting into 15, 16 cases here to try and get stuff going. Might just use a lot of prepositions, or well, I guess adpositions. I haven't decided preposition or postposition, but in some way, say if you've learned like a Romance language, imagine stripping all of the things off of the verb and putting it all onto the nouns in some fashion. And this could be where I get some of my neat sound changes to really mess with nouns. Nouns might get very complex. We'll see what happens. And I have this idea for a numbering system that I thought of a few weeks ago. I'm going to call it a more or less numbering system. I'll get more into that, but basically what I want to do is say you have a word like I, and your basic form is the number that you expect there to be. So really the word I would refer to two of them, and you could use something like phi to mean one I, and something like my to mean 3 plus i's. So your unmarked is just whatever number you expect. And say you've got something like finger would mean 10 fingers. To keep it, finger would be 9 or less fingers. And finger would be 11 plus fingers, something like that. That's not where I want the plus. Oh, I know what's going on. I have my keyboard doing things. 11 plus fingers, 3 plus eyes. Something like that. We'll see. That could get weird with certain nouns. And it would change, obviously if you're talking about houses, if you're talking about, he has a house, that means 1. But if you say there are houses in the village, whatever the expected number of houses to be in a village is what you're talking about. And that could get very interesting. I do plan on having also number words. And I don't know what I'll do with that, but I might have them just sit on the base form. We'll see. I should probably spell finger correctly. And that's what I'd like to do with nouns. And then you'll see why verbs are so simple. I'm trying to really throw stuff on the nouns. I just want to try it and see what happens. And then adjectives. The reason I want them verbal is because I imagine the nouns are going to get very complex, and I'm not sure I want to deal with the agreement with adjectives as much. If I keep them verbal-ish, I can maybe chop down some of that complexity. What I might end up using is a lot of relative clauses. Adjectives might agree with their noun the way a relative clause does. Relative clause heavy? We'll see what happens with that. But that's all I'm gonna do. I think for this video, I think that's what I'll set up, and that's what I'll work with. On the next video, I'll start with phonology. I always start with phonology when I'm starting to get into the specifics of the language, just because that gives me the sounds that I can begin to work with and begin to create this stuff. So I expect the next video to come fairly soon, and not, not have you sit and wait for a long time before I get the phonology video out while you're just sitting here going, huh, that's an interesting Conlang, but go on. Well, hopefully, just in a few days, I'll have the first phonology video up. We'll see how long it takes me to get through phonology. Could be a couple videos. Wait, it will definitely be a few videos. So, alright, with that, this has been the first video for this language. If you want to keep up on this project or see more Conlang videos, feel free to subscribe, and we'll see you around. Icarus out.